Was I wrong for what I did? Honestly, after everything, I still don't know, but I had to do something. My husband, the man I loved, the man I built a life with, cheated on me. And when I found out, I didn't just cry or yell. I decided to absolutely decimate his life, legally. Tell me, if you were in my shoes, would you have done the same thing? Let's go back a few years. Back to when things were good, or at least when I thought they were good. I met Mark at a friend's barbecue. He was charming, witty, and had a smile that could disarm anyone. We hit it off instantly, talking for hours about everything and nothing. It felt like one of those movie meet-cutes, you know? Within a year, we were inseparable. He was my rock, my confidant, my best friend. We moved in together, and then, after 2 years of what I genuinely believed was pure bliss, he proposed. It was a beautiful, intimate proposal by the lake where we had our first date. I said yes, tears streaming down my face, feeling like the luckiest woman alive. Our wedding was small but perfect, surrounded by our closest family and friends. We had modest dreams, a comfortable house, maybe a couple of kids eventually, and a lifetime of just being us. We bought a cute little house in the suburbs, a fixer-upper which we spent countless weekends renovating ourselves. I remember the joy of picking out paint colors, sanding floors, and laughing as we inevitably spilled something or drilled a hole in the wrong place. Those were the good times. The times I'd eventually look back on with a bittersweet ache, wondering how something so seemingly solid could crumble so spectacularly. Mark was an engineer, always meticulous and organized, which I always found endearing. I worked in marketing, a bit more chaotic and creative, and we balanced each other out perfectly. He handled the finances, making sure we were always on track with our savings and investments, and I handled the more day-to-day household management, the social calendar, and the emotional heavy lifting. It was a partnership, a true division of labor that worked for us. We had joint bank accounts, joint investments, and everything was shared, completely intertwined as it should be when you're married, right? We even had a small business together, a little online venture selling custom-designed home decor. It was more of a passion project than a major income source, but it was ours. We built it from the ground up, late nights sketching designs, sourcing materials, and packaging orders. This business, as innocent as it seemed at the time, would later become a critical piece in my unraveling of his life. I trusted him implicitly. Never once did a shadow of doubt cross my mind about his loyalty or commitment. He was attentive, affectionate, and always made me feel like the most important person in his world. Or so I thought. The cracks, when they started to appear, were subtle. He began working longer hours, which initially I didn't think much of. Engineering projects can be demanding, and he often brought work home. But then the late nights at the office turned into business trips that seemed to pop up with increasing frequency. He'd come home tired, distant, and sometimes a little irritable. When I'd try to talk to him about it, he'd brush it off, blaming stress from work, saying he just needed space. I tried to be understanding, offering to cook his favorite meals, giving him back rubs, trying to lighten his load. I thought I was being a supportive wife. Looking back, I realized I was probably just making it easier for him to continue his deception. Then came the small, almost imperceptible changes. His phone, once left casually on the counter, was now always in his pocket, face down. He started taking calls in another room, speaking in hushed tones. He smelled different sometimes, not bad, just unfamiliar. A scent that wasn't our laundry detergent or his usual cologne. My gut. That annoying little voice in the back of my head started whispering. I tried to silence it, to rationalize it away. He's stressed. He's busy. I'm overthinking. But the whispers grew louder, more insistent. One evening he came home from a business trip, a 4-day conference in another city, looking strangely refreshed, almost giddy. He had a new haircut, a subtle change I wouldn't have noticed if I wasn't scrutinizing every detail by then. And then I saw it. A small, almost invisible smudge of bright pink lipstick on his collar. Not my shade, not even close. My blood ran cold. The whispers turned into a scream. I didn't say anything right away. I hugged him, feigned a smile, and went about my evening duties, but inside a storm was brewing. I felt like I was moving through quicksand. My mind raced, trying to piece together every oddity, every excuse, every distant look. That night, after he had fallen asleep, I did something I never thought I'd do. I took his phone. It was locked, of course, with a passcode, but I knew it. It was our anniversary date, a fact that twisted the knife even deeper. My hands trembled as I typed it in. What I found inside was worse than anything I could have imagined. Texts, hundreds of them, with a woman named Jessica. pet names, declarations of love, intimate details of their business trips that were anything but business. Photos. So many photos. Photos of them together, laughing, holding hands, kissing. Photos of them in hotel rooms. My heart shattered into a million pieces. It wasn't just a one-time mistake. It was an ongoing, full-blown affair, spanning months, maybe even a year. The business trips were just excuses to be with her. The late nights were spent with her. The new haircut, the giddy mood, the unfamiliar scent. It all clicked into place, a horrifying mosaic of betrayal. I didn't wake him up. I didn't scream or confront him then. I just sat there, phone in hand, watching the screen. Tears silently streaming down my face, feeling a numbness that was almost otherworldly. Something inside me snapped. The woman who loved him, who built a life with him, vanished. In her place was a cold, calculating strategist. I knew then that crying and yelling wouldn't be enough. He hadn't just broken my heart. He had trampled on my trust, mocked our vows, and stolen months, if not years, of my life with his deception. He deserved more than just a broken marriage. He deserved to pay for every single lie. Over the next few days, I acted completely normal. I cooked his breakfast, asked about his day, even made small talk about our plans for the weekend. Inside, though, I was meticulously planning his downfall. I secretly copied all the damning evidence from his phone onto a flash drive, and then deleted the conversations from his device just in case. I started gathering all our financial documents, the joint bank statements, investment portfolios, deeds to the house, and critically, all the paperwork for our shared small business. So that's the situation I was in, and I had to make a choice. Before I tell you what happened next, I want you to pause and comment below what you would have done in my shoes. Would you have confronted him directly, filed for divorce quietly, or would you have, like me, decided that a simple divorce wasn't enough, that he needed to experience a taste of the devastation he had wrought upon my life, just in a different, more permanent way? My revenge wasn't going to be dramatic or emotional. It was going to be surgical, precise, and entirely legal. I spent hours online researching divorce laws, community property states, and the implications of marital infidelity on asset division. I also looked into business law, specifically how a jointly owned small business could be handled in a divorce. The first step was to secure my financial position. Remember how Mark handled all the finances? Big mistake on his part, because I knew enough to know where everything was. While he was at work, I visited our joint bank accounts. I meticulously transferred exactly half of all liquid assets into a separate account I opened solely in my name. I didn't take a penny more than what was legally mine, and I documented every single transaction. I knew trying to hide funds would only complicate things and potentially jeopardize my legal standing. Next, I consulted with a divorce attorney, one who specialized in high-conflict cases and asset protection. I brought everything: the flash drive with the evidence, all the financial documents, and a detailed timeline of his affair that I had painstakingly put together. My attorney's eyes widened as I laid out the case. She told me that while infidelity doesn't always directly impact asset division in our state, it could definitely influence spousal support and the court's overall perception, especially with such blatant and prolonged deception. But the real leverage, the one that would allow me to truly ruin his life legally as I intended, was our small business. Our home decor business was registered as a partnership, and critically, Mark had taken out a significant business loan in both our names, personally guaranteeing it, to expand production a few months prior. This loan was primarily secured against the business assets, but also against our personal assets if the business failed. What Mark didn't realize was that when he was busy gallivanting with Jessica, I had been the one doing most of the actual work for the business: designing, marketing, managing inventory, and customer service. He largely oversaw the financial side and occasional product development. This meant I had a strong claim to its operational control and a deep understanding of its inner workings. Here's where my plan truly began to unfold. I served him with divorce papers. He was absolutely floored. The look on his face, a mixture of shock, confusion, and dawning horror, was almost satisfying. He tried to play innocent at first, asking what was wrong, what had happened. When I calmly presented him with the evidence from his phone, his face drained of all color. He tried to apologize, to beg, to explain it away as a moment of weakness, but I cut him off. There was no going back. The betrayal was too deep. The legal process began. because I had been so meticulous in gathering evidence and securing my half of the liquid assets. The financial aspect of the divorce, while still contentious, was relatively straightforward. He couldn't deny the infidelity, and his legal team couldn't argue with the clear paper trail of our joint finances. The house was sold and we split the proceeds. Our shared investments were divided equally. But the business, that was my masterpiece. My attorney argued that given his extensive travel and neglect of the business during the period of his affair, he had demonstrably breached his fiduciary duties as a partner. We presented emails and production schedules showing that I had effectively been running the business single-handedly for months. The court also took into account the business loan, which was a significant liability. My proposal was simple, yet devastating for Mark. I would take full ownership of the business, including all its assets and the responsibility for the outstanding loan. In exchange, he would relinquish all claims to the business, its future profits, and pay a reduced spousal support. From his perspective, it seemed like a good deal. He saw the business as a relatively small entity, and he was eager to be free of the trouble of the loan. What he didn't realize, and what I strategically downplayed, was the immense growth potential I had secretly been cultivating. While he was distracted, I had landed a major contract with a national retail chain that was about to launch our products nationwide. I had kept this completely under wraps, negotiating it in my individual capacity for the partnership, but not yet signing the final agreement. He knew about the preliminary discussions but dismissed them as unlikely. The court, seeing my detailed plan for the business and his lack of engagement, agreed to my proposal. The judge essentially saw me as the active and responsible partner who could best ensure the business's success and the repayment of the loan, which was important to the creditors. Mark signed away his half of the business, probably with a sigh of relief, thinking he had dodged a bullet. He thought he was getting out clean, with half our assets and less spousal support than he might have faced. He had no idea the bullet he was actually dodging was a mere BB gun compared to the cannonball I had loaded for him. A month after the divorce was finalized, I officially signed the contract with the national retailer. Our business exploded overnight. What was once a passion project became a multi-million-dollar enterprise within a year. The small business he had so carelessly discarded became incredibly successful, far beyond anything either of us had initially imagined. Not only did I easily pay off the business loan, but the profits were astronomical. Mark, meanwhile, found himself in a rather unenviable position. His infidelity had become somewhat known within his professional circle, leading to a strained work environment. He found it difficult to climb the ladder as his reputation had taken a hit. He also discovered that starting over financially, even with his half of our previous assets, was much harder than he anticipated, especially now that he had spousal support obligations to me. He watched from the sidelines as the business he co-founded, the business he thought was just a side hustle, became a massive success story. He had signed away his rights to any of it, legally and irrevocably. The irony was palpable. Every article, every news story about my company's success served as a stark public reminder of what he had forfeited due to his own betrayal. He saw my face in interviews, saw our products in major stores, and knew that every penny of that success could have been partially his. He occasionally tried to contact me, sending pathetic emails about how he missed the good old days and regretted everything. I never responded. There was nothing left to say. He had chosen his path, and I had simply paved the road to his destination. I didn't get loud or emotional. I didn't break any laws or resort to cheap tricks. I simply used the system, the very legal framework we had both built our marriage upon, to ensure he faced the full, legal consequences of his actions. I never gloated, at least not directly to him, but the quiet satisfaction of knowing I had not only survived but thrived, while he was left to grapple with the consequences of his choices, was a constant internal triumph. The journey was incredibly painful, tearing apart the life I thought I had, but ultimately it forged a stronger, more resilient me. So, here I am, on the other side of that nightmare. I'm a successful business owner, financially independent, and, for the first time in a long time, truly happy. Mark is, well, he's still Mark, but with a lot fewer assets and a lot more regrets. Was I wrong for what I did? Maybe some would say so. Some might call it cold, calculating, or overly vindictive. But to me, it was simply self-preservation, justice, and reclaiming my life from the wreckage he created. I used the tools available to me, legally and strategically, to ensure that his betrayal had significant, tangible consequences for him, just as it had for me. What do you think? Like this video if you were on my side and think he deserved every bit of it. Subscribe for more stories like this and share your final thoughts on this whole mess in the comment section below. I'll see you all in the next story.